All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and CEO of Cotopaxi, Mr. Davis Smith.
All right, it's great to be here. I want to introduce a mentor of mine and a friend, Christine Day. Christine Day is the CEO of Luvo and the former CEO of Lululemon.
Hey.
Thanks for coming out to Salt Lake.
Hey, I love Salt Lake.
I love that you're here again.
Yeah.
So, first of all, we just had Alex Rodriguez on stage, and I thought it'd be fun if you told us a little bit about Luvo, the company that you're currently running, and maybe even tell us who some of the investors are, because I think it's kind of relevant.
Yep, I have pretty exciting business partners. My majority partner is a group called Dugout Ventures, and that is David Ortiz, Barry Larkin, Tori Hunter, Vernon Wells, and Nolan Ryan. And Russell Wilson and Derek Jeter also own part of my current company.
It's pretty awesome.
I hang with great people.
So tell us a little bit more about Luvo and what you guys are doing.
I started Luvo about 5 years ago with the mission of making a difference in people's health, because 74% of our healthcare dollars are spent on diseases that are related to food. So hypertension, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, and watching personal family members suffer from those diseases, and going to the grocery store and realizing there was actually nothing on the aisle that actually just followed simple nutrition, but was also delicious. So we've been busy creating now about 20 items, and we're in about 9,000 grocery stores. And the reason Dugout Ventures and the athletes invested in us is they did their work on nutrition and realized that we're the only company that actually follows nutrition science to create food, but yet makes it delicious. You're still eating, quinoa vegetable enchiladas and chicken chili verde and all the things you want to eat, but we do it in ways that really address metabolic health. But you don't even have to know, you just have to pick what you like to eat.
So this is not your first stint in food, actually. Interestingly, most people know Christine for her role as CEO of Lululemon, but before that, she actually spent 20 years at Starbucks, and you were employee number 3
Yep.
at Starbucks in the office. I think they were doing less than $500,000 in revenue at the time.
$437,000 a year.
Amazing.
Yep.
And then when you left, they were doing like $8 billion or something similar.
$8 billion, and I was running 10 countries in Asia, and I had just opened up the China company-owned markets. But the fun thing, too, at Starbucks was I got to work with Magic Johnson, and I ran his Urban Coffee Opportunities Partnership as well.
So what lessons did you learn from Howard Schultz and from that experience at Starbucks that you were able to leverage to then become a CEO? Because you hadn't been a CEO before Lululemon.
I was very fortunate to grow up in the Starbucks culture where we had Howard, who was a great visionary. We had Howard Behar, who was an incredible people leader, and a lot of the way that we led actually came from him. And then Orrin Smith, who I considered one of the best business strategists in the world. So I had a front row seat to 3 fantastic business leaders with different skill sets that then I was able to incorporate in my own leadership. Different aspects of theirs to hone kind of a broader skill set. And the other thing at Starbucks, I worked in every division. I was one of the people who, when they couldn't figure something out, they said, make Christine do it. So I ran everything from, the office and financing, strategy, purchasing, real estate store development for 6 years. I built all of the labor systems, training systems, and then I went out and ran the zones. And so it was that deep building operating experience that I got, knowing where every penny. When I started at Starbucks El Denali, we still did manual books. So I had to do all the ledger entries. But I also built a lot of the technology platforms because my degree was actually in business and technology. And the funny story about technology was we actually had store-level ordering on demand over your cell phone in 1999, and we were testing it in 2 markets in Seattle and Denver. It was my project, and Howard killed it because he thought technology was taking the human connection out of our stores. So I was right a lot of years later, and remind him of that whenever I see him.
I love, Christine's always very forward-thinking, which is why she's a great mentor. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, so you invested in Cotopaxi in our earliest days, and
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about investment thesis and how you think about investing, how you identify great brands. What makes the difference between a good brand and a great brand?
You know, we called this session Innovate on Purpose. And, you know, regardless whether you're in technology or, you know, business, consumer products like I am, really when you create engagement with consumers. So what I always look for is a company that has actually a core purpose, because you can say like Facebook's mission was to connect people and to allow people to share their stories and stay connected. And when they stay true to that mission, you know, they were able to build, you know, 2 billion followers. And so it's that purpose, whether, you know, at Cotopaxi and, you know, enjoying the outdoor life and connecting people, inspiring them through sustainability. You know, at Lululemon, it was inspiring everyday exercise to make people's lives more connected. And through yoga, which allowed people to also be more present. So having those deep purposes, Starbucks connecting people, when you can bring together purpose with technology, with good business leadership, and branding, you can stay truer and people are engaged with your company and your brand. The other things I look for are what's the size of the market and how differentiated you are. So Starbucks really, for instance, focused on personalized coffee, so that double tall, extra hot, half sweet, no whip mocha that you can go in and order anywhere in the world. It's your beverage, it's highly personalized and consistency. You know, at Lululemon, it was, you know, was bringing functional fashion together in a retail model. So it was differentiated, but women exercise, and what was missing in the marketplace there was people didn't really recognize that women worked out as studio and running versus they don't play soccer at 30 anymore. And then I look for in the team that ability to have the true grit and are they coachable? Because it takes a lot to get a company through small to where you're basically reacting a lot and you're muscling through things to then planning for success, which is the next stage of a company. And it takes a different skill set. And if you don't learn how to plan for that success and change your horizon to first 18 months and then later 5 years, the business gets too complex to run.
So you mentioned the size of the market. Now, one interesting thing about Lululemon is that when Lululemon started, the size of the yoga market was tiny. It was like less than $1 billion. But today, Lululemon's market cap is $19 billion. So it's almost 20 times bigger than the entire industry was. So how did you guys create a category like this?
Our focus was on actually creating desire, and we realized the best way to do that was to focus on the yoga teachers themselves. And so part of the reason we had them come into the stores and teach the classes for free wasn't for us to sell merchandise. It was actually so that the teachers developed a client base, so that when they opened their studio, that they had the financial customer base to really be able to drive that transaction. And we knew that by creating more studios, creating more customers, we created the market that we moved into.
And when you joined Lululemon, so you joined in January of 2008. This is right around the financial crisis, right before. You'd never been a CEO before. The market price, the stock price of Lululemon was around $15. Yeah. And when you left, about 6 years later, it was at $80 a share. So like a 5x in market cap over a 5 or 6 year period. What made you such an exceptional CEO? You'd never done it before.
You know, the reality was I'd been in growth businesses all my life at Starbucks, and you know, year after year for my 20 years, we produced 25% top line growth and 25% bottom line growth I was programmed to do that over that period of time. But you forgot the journey down to $4 right after I started, when people didn't have any faith in me as a CEO, a brand new CEO facing a financial crisis. So what it allowed us to do was be really thrifty with our money right away. So I knew that I had to really protect cash because we only had 40 million in the bank and 100 million open to buy. So I had to figure out how to flow cash. We decided on a slow growth model, sweat the assets of the store, so that we never had stores that opened poorly, that when they opened well, we were able to get the cash flow from that store, so we created the pop-up strategy. I shifted to online, so I was really smart about capital asset deployment, all lessons I'd learned at Starbucks, and really about customer loyalty and retention, and then scarcity. So we went for color at a time everyone went safe to black, and we created the scarcity model of all the little hot colors.
Now, you mentioned the stores, how you guys made sure that, I love the story about how you guys thought about opening stores. You said you always wanted to make sure that stores had great openings. And tell us how you thought about those store openings.
So we opened, eventually it was over 200 pop-ups, but we would do them in batches of 30. And we plant the seed in small cities, we'd build the ambassadors, we'd build the online business. And so by the time we opened the store, we had a whole community to support and that was excited about it, and that created high engagement. So right from day one, our stores were paying back in profitability in under 3 months.
Amazing. One of the things that I've talked to you about is the fact that, so when you joined Lululemon, the founder, Chip, had basically turned the reins over to you.
And, with some backseat driving.
Yeah. So maybe talk to us a little bit about that transition. And if there's any founders in the room, you've probably thought about this. Like, hey, at some point, maybe I'm not the right person to take this business all the way. Or at some point, there might be a reason to go hire a CEO that kind of takes those reins. How should we be thinking about that as founders?
I think there's a reality of scaling businesses. It's a different skill set. But you don't want to lose vision and purpose. So finding people that you really connect to the purpose of your business is critical. And have a vision of their own for what that should look like and relate to it. So that fit is key. But once you take other people's money, you have a different set of responsibilities than just as a founder, where your own vision and decisions only affect you and maybe the people that you work for. You now have an obligation to create a return. So, you have to you have to control your cash better. You have to control and deliver on growth. You have to manage your people. So the hardest part, and I know you know this, Davis, is when you have people who were co-founders with you or early employees who can't maybe get to the next level, the pressure's on us to cut, because if we don't cut and make those changes and invest in the future growth and capability of the company, then we're probably the ones that are going to get cut. And I think that's a tough thing, because we're loyal to our people. And especially if we've created a strong culture organization, which everything I've been a part of has been really strong cultures. The thing I've learned about culture is that sometimes it also can be your enemy to growth, because you have to stay focused on your vision for the future, and sometimes the people who are most culturally relevant are the newest people in. So for instance, when I went and brought on e-commerce to Lulu, all the people who did community-based tried to eject that team several times. But it was a really important growth lever to our mission and to our business model. So I had to actually take out a couple of the founding people who struggled with that. And that was really tough for me, being a people person, but I had a bigger obligation to grow the company. And those are kind of the challenges you face as going from founder-led to professionally managed company.
So as we've been walking around the halls this morning, and yesterday we had a women's event at Cotopaxi, it's so fun to see you engage with other business leaders. And of course, I noticed that women are drawn to you, and they wanna learn from you. Talk to us a little bit about why that's important, why it's important that you play that role.
Well, I think I was fortunate to have a lot of great mentors, and I really believe in changing the workplace for women when I'm there. And it's more than just putting circles or talking. I scan every group I'm a part of, look for the talented women, put them on development plans. I make sure I equalize the pay. I make sure I have a board of directors and a senior management team that's 50%, women and diverse, so that all kinds of talent can be welcome in the company. And I think it's important not only to do that inside your company, but then to show other women at these forums that it can be done, and what are the traits of being successful as a CEO? Because I don't look at myself as a female CEO. I look at myself as a talented CEO, and that's how I want them to see themselves too.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Christine Day. Christine, thank you for joining us at Silicon Slopes. All right, ladies and gentlemen.